What's up? Have you seen Spider-Man No Way Home and you're dying to talk about spoilers? Same, bro. Let's get into it. Obviously, that's as much of a spoiler warning as you can get, so we're gonna just hop right into it because we got a lot to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. So the movie opens, Spider-Man's identity is revealed, sick or not sick. This is awful. We gotta hide and cower, and there's helicopters outside of May's house, and it's all very crazy. And I liked the first 5 or so minutes of that, but I didn't like how much jokes that were just didn't land for me in between there because MJ and Peter are panicking and they're figuring, oh, where do we go? And then he goes back to school for some reason. I don't know, but if I were me, school would be like the last place I would try to go. I would try to get not out of the country because his passport was probably blocked, but like anywhere else, dude. Don't go back to school. You don't want the attention. Why would you go back there? So they did a good job in showing how crazy his life spiraled out of control for a minute there, but then he's just like randomly able to walk out in public. He just walks a couple blocks to see Doctor Strange and just there's no one there, no reporters, police, anything. But on that note, I did like how the first third of this movie is somewhat focused on Peter, Ned, MJ, and their dynamic, their friendship, and them trying to go to college together. Second biggest thing that happened in that first third, Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox is back as Daredevil. That was hype. Peter needs some legal counsel, some representation, and Matt's like, yeah, dude, I can maybe do that for you, but you're gonna need to call in the big guns. And then he catches the brick that hurtles through the window, because, you know, Daredevil senses. If you haven't seen Netflix Daredevil, you're messing up, dude. It's one of the best things to come out of the MCU and superhero properties and media in general ever. Absolute masterpiece. I can't wait to see him in further MCU things. So some time passes and Peter goes to Doctor Strange for help and he's like, all right, we're gonna do this spell, and then Peter adds all those conditionals of people he still wants to know, and that tampers with the spell and everything. And Doctor Strange like really lays into this kid. And he's like, oh, I get it. I remember we saved the universe and all, but you're just a kid and you're making all these dumb decisions and you can't have it both ways as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And I kind of wish Doctor Strange had just taken a little bit of responsibility for what happened. Because yeah, it's true that Peter adding those conditions botched the spell and everything, but like Strange still agreed to do it. He is the adult in the room there. He should have at least said, oh, this is somewhat my fault too. I just thought that was a little bit weird. But anyway, the spell being messed up leads to all the villains coming through the multiverse, and that's where we get the bridge scene from the trailers with Doc Ock. I felt that was really cool. I really like that the focus of this scene is Peter Parker saving people. He's running away for half the fight from Doc Ock, not because he's afraid of him, but there's people in danger and Spider-Man is supposed to save people. That's something this movie understands. But anyway, they go even for a while. It's a really well choreographed fight with all the Iron Spider legs versus the Doc Ock tentacles, and then Doc messes up by corrupting himself with the nanotech, and Peter just, you know, Bluetooth paired. He wins the fight that way. I felt like that was a clever way to end that fight and make Peter win, but like, I don't know, the Spider-Man 2 shill inside me. I was like, no, my boy, why are you going down like that? Electro goes through a power-up. Jamie Foxx is much cooler in this movie, but he still is like the Electro you know and love because he's just power crazy. He just wants to be seen. He just wants to be the most powerful he can be. And they get Jamie Foxx Electro, they get Lizard, they get Sandman, they get them all in this prison. And then Peter wants to make a plan so they don't have to go back to their universes to die. And that's cool because that's what I meant in my spoiler-free review where I'm like, yo, this movie really goes out of its way to show that this Peter Parker, at his core, at his heart, is a really good kid who wants to save as many people as he can. Peter goes, he steals the magic box that would send him back home to die, and Strange chases him to the mirror dimension, and Peter actually has a little scuffle with Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension and wins, because this movie realized that Peter Parker is a science tech nerd genius mathematical stuff, man. He figures out the mirror dimension is just, you know, a circle. He traps Doctor Strange in there and he skedaddles with the magic box, and I thought that was really cool because I don't feel like, apart from making his own web fluid, I don't feel like we've seen this version of Tom Holland be a genius that often. But for most of the second act, the movie was absolutely stolen by Willem Dafoe returning as Norman Osborn. There's so much love in this movie for this character. His first scene is him talking to the mask from Spider-Man 1, and you're like, yo, they're doing it. He's actually back. He teaches Peter about pain and loss. He stone cold Steve Austin's Peter in the apartment, bro. He slams him through 3 floors. And I love that, like, Dark Knight. I felt like that was Batman versus Joker in the interrogation room. Peter has Norman cornered and he's just wailing on him, blow after blow, and Dafoe just keeps laughing at him. So Dafoe claps Peter. He kills Aunt May with the glider, and this was the first great power, great responsibility line in the MCU as a whole. It was Aunt May's last word, so I could see how some felt like it was just shoehorned in there and needed to be in there and stuff like that. But like Peter Parker in this version in the MCU, he needed to hear that. He'd never heard it before on screen. I'm watching Aunt May slowly die in his arms, and I'm like, yo, this is real loss. This is real tragedy of a loved one. Not like Tony Stark, but this is different because Peter can feel guilty about this. He can feel like it's his fault, and that's something he couldn't feel when Tony Stark died. Aunt May dies in his arms. There's a really nice scene where he's just taking it all in, bloodied, tearful, in the snow, and J. Jonah Jameson is somehow blaming it on him. That was a Parker luck moment. That was a moment where I'm like, yo, Peter Parker's life sucks. That's something the other MCU Spider-Man movies hadn't done. I'm telling you, dude, they just went back to the roots of the character. Peter gave the sling ring to Ned, so he's the one that summons in Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire into this universe, and the theater just goes crazy. It was a great moment. MJ is not sure Andrew Garfield is actually Spider-Man, so she wants him to climb up the wall just to prove it, and that was a great comedic scene. But again, it was kind of bogged down by so many quips because Ned's auntie or whoever the hell was there also, and they were like, okay, can you get that cobweb? And I don't know who's here, who are these people? It made the scene drag on a little bit. I realize as I'm rambling about how the scene dragged on. But Tobey coming back, you can just see the years on his face. I like how he adjusted his performance based on, where his character would be, at least chronologically, right? This is a more grizzled, battle-worn, seasoned Peter Parker, and you really just see it on his face, man. He has a nice quick little scuffle with Andrew where they do like a high noon quick draw western moment where they both shoot their webs at each other at the same time. That crap was cool. But the heart of the scene is that these two versions of Spider-Man are there for Tom Holland's Peter Parker when he's dealing with the loss of Aunt May. This is his Uncle Ben moment, and it was so cool for them to try to relate to him in that moment, because who else knows better what a Spider-Man goes through than other Spider-Men? Tobey specifically was able to relate to him with the great power, great responsibility moment. That was so sick to see. That was important. But we also see that Andrew Garfield is still coping with the guilt and the loss of Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and he wears that on his sleeve, man. Andrew Garfield was fantastic in this movie. Skipping ahead a little bit, that makes the scene where he actually catches Mary Jane and redeems his failure from his movie hit you in the feels, man. Fantastic moment. But anyway, I love the banter between the 3 Spider-Man. Tobey's the only one that can shoot webs from his wrist biologically with no web shooters. Andrew Garfield helps Tobey fix his back. All these interactions were absolute gold, and I loved them. All the Peter Parkers are our only child, so when Andrew Garfield was like, man, it's great to finally have brothers, that also got me a little teary, dude. They really nailed the interactions between the 3 versions of Peter, and they also showed how Tom Holland's version is different and unique because he's been on the Avengers. He knows how to work as a team. The other Spider-Mans haven't had that, so him coordinating who does what, who takes on what villain in battle, strategize, that was really cool to see, and that was really a great come into his own moment for Tom Holland's Peter Parker. You got those sick money shots of all 3 Spider-Man working together, and I really loved how they all, when they actually got to curing their villains, how Tobey had a great moment with Dr. Octopus, with Sandman, and how Andrew got a really good moment with Electro too. That was really good to see all those character arcs come to a head like that. But finally, Tom Holland gets his one-on-one rematch with Norman Osborn, and he actually wails on this dude. He does this web flip around, flip spin move from the PS4 video game that they actually admitted they took from the game. That was a nice little Easter egg. Tom Holland actually destroys Goblin in this second fight, and he's about to pick up his glider and stab Norman in the chest, just killing him, and Tobey steps in the way. Bro, what? This was such an amazing moment for so many reasons. It's another older Spider-Man knowing what he's gone through, teaching him how to forgive, teaching him that revenge is not the answer. What other Spider-Man could teach that lesson better than Tobey? That was a fantastic moment. They tried to tease us like they'd kill Tobey by having Norman stab him in the back, but I would not like this movie very much if they did that, so I'm glad it was just a tease. They didn't actually kill Toby. Good job, movie. The other Spider-Man go their separate ways. They hug it out, man, and it's just so good to see Toby and Andrew in these movies again. I'm glad they used them so well. But the consequence is that Doctor Strange is dealing with all the other multiverses trying to intercept this one, and so the only way he can reverse the spell is if everyone forgets not just Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but that Peter Parker ever existed, including May, including Ned, including Mary Jane. The tearful send-off he had with not just the Spider-Man, but with his best friends, it got me feeling some type of way. And then it's snowy, it's somber, he visits Aunt May's grave, and Happy doesn't know who he is. This is the first MCU movie, this is the first Spider-Man movie to end with a graveyard scene that, since Amazing Spider-Man 2, it's been 7 years, so yeah, that was another thing. I felt the movie fighting itself in every bone of its body to crack a joke when Happy visited Peter at the grave, but he's like, oh, how'd you know her? And I was like, oh, wait, he doesn't know who he is either. And that makes this compelling, at least dramatically, right? Goes back to MJ. They have a tender moment where he's trying to let them go and finally realize that he is okay with this decision that he made. MJ and Ned's lives are better off having this happen because they finally got into MIT and Peter can be his own man apart from the shackles of the MCU, as my friend loved to say. He's completely on his own, no Aunt May to take care of him, no Tony Stark funding $1 billion suit. He's Spider-Man now. He is on his own, and he's in a crappy apartment, rent due at the first of every month. He forges his own costume, and he swings away, and that is No Way Home. Those last 20 minutes, man, they outdid themselves. It felt like a genuinely good Spider-Man movie, and like an origin, like I said, because Tom Holland's Spider-Man now has regular Peter Parker problems. This is the direction I've wanted this character to go for a long time. A long time. Post-credit scene happens. Venom is not going to be in the MCU as Tom Hardy, but he left the symbiote in the MCU universe, and hopefully in Tom's Spider-Man 4, in his first college year, he's going to be dealing with the black suit. I can't wait to see what they do with that. So those are some spoiler-filled thoughts of Spider-Man No Way Home. You are a real one if you made it to the end of this video. The next time we meet, I will be ranking all of the Spider-Man movies, so look forward to seeing that. In the meantime, I am Pac. Thanks so much for hearing my perspective, and I'm out for now.